Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Ryan and welcome back to a brand new video on HMSGP News. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new dashboard virtual pitboard system thing. So basically this new virtual pitboard is already in use by Race Direction to communicate penalties and stuff like that. But as from 2018, basically it is like Formula 1. The team can directly communicate with the rider through the dashboard. However, you can't like ask what about this or try something here. It's literally just pitting a flag to flag, drop a position and stuff like that basically. So it's okay, but it's not at the same time. We're going to talk through the positives and the negatives of this. Let us know down in the comments what you think about this new virtual pitboard. Do you think it will make the racing more exciting? Do you think it will make it, you know, just worse? Because I'm going to go through a few things of my personal opinion and how this new virtual pitboard could affect the races in the past, the flag-to-flag races in the past. So we're looking at Misano in 2015, Sachsenring last year, Phillip Island in 2013 was it, when they had to make the mandatory stop for the tyres, Argentina last year, stuff like that. So the races where you have a flag-to-flag. You know, even Sachsenring maybe way back in 2013 again, when they all started from pit lane. Stuff like that. So, we're going to go back to Misano 2015. Let me just get the article up here. So, it was a very, very tricky race, let's just say that. And it was one that was a very big part in the 2015 championship, with Jorge Lorenzo eventually crashing out and Rossi dropping to 5th after all that. So, basically, it started raining on the warm-up lap. You know, they were on dry tyres, it started raining, so they started the race on the dries, they were racing, and then all three of them eventually then pit onto the wet tyres, but it was from the transition from, it went dry to wet and then wet to dry, and it was that wet to dry period that changed the whole thing. Now, so, as you would normally see in racing, like we saw last year at Sachsenring, when you're in the leading group, you do not pit first. You wait until your competitors go in, so they don't gain time, you don't lose time, etc., etc. You stay out when you stay out until they pit. So, obviously, as they do, they all pit. They all pit into the wet tyres together, and then it was that transition from wet to dry which then changed everything. Marc Marquez come into the pits on lap 18. He was in 3rd position, so he was behind Jorge Lorenzo and Valentino Rossi as they were battling it out for the lead. He was behind, so Marquez pit. The guys in front, they didn't know. So Marquez was then gaining time on the slick tyres. Lorenzo then pit a lap later, so on lap 19, and Rossi continued going till about, I think it was about 7 laps remaining. He kept going and going and going. But then, obviously, if this new virtual pitboard system was in place back then, Rossi would have been told that Lorenzo and Marquez is on this slick tyre lapping, you know, I don't know, 4 seconds, 5 seconds a lap faster than Rossi, who's riding around on a dry track with wet tyres. Then he would have come into the pits and be like, right, okay, we need to really, really, really push now. So with then, you know, Rossi pitting, it was already too late because Marquez chosen the perfect time to pit. He's pulled a big, big lead to win the race in the end. And, you know, I mean, it was a very, very, very strange race because, you know, we had Scott Redding crashing. He then put the wet tyres on early and he just kept going. Bradley Smith, he stayed out on slicks all race. He didn't make a stop. And he finished in 2nd position, I think, with Scott Redding taking 3rd. So it was a very, very, very strange Grand Prix. But if you had that, like I said, that virtual pitboard system, it would have changed the whole result completely because, you know, Rossi wouldn't have stayed out as long as he had. You know, Bradley Smith may not have stayed out. Scott Redding may not have gone on that wet tyre when he did after he crashed. So, you know, that could have been a complete different change to the race result if this new system was in place in, you know, 2015. Now, we're going back to 2016 now. I'm just loading up the article. I have it here. And this was a very, very big thing. This was a very big race. This helped Mark with the championship for sure. So the race obviously began and it was Rossi and Dovi leading the way for some time, and then the rain went from wet to dry. Marquez had ran off the track at this point. Marquez had ran off the circuit. He was way down, but on lap number 17 he moved into the pit lane to put on the dry tyres. He was the only guy on dry tyres at that time. He just kept working and working and working. The track, every lap was getting drier and drier and faster, whereas everyone else was slower and slower and slower. So there was this big group formed from first to about 8th or 9th position, and then there was Marquez in about 15th position just riding around. Now, if, again, we're going back to this virtual pit board, if this system was there, then, you know, they would have been told that Marquez box, they would have put MM93 box, lap 17, and then dry, and then his lap time, and then obviously the riders will see their lap time and be like, oh my god, I'm like 10 seconds a lap slower, I'm going to lose this race, and would have made the stop earlier. So they all come in the pits on lap 19, that's what, 2 or 3 laps that Marquez has got on dry tyres, lapping faster than them, gaining his advantage, and he went on to win the race. And Valentino Rossi, as we've seen so many times in flag-to-flag races, he lost the race. He lost the podium, he lost points, he basically ruined his championship chances because he ignored the team's, messages. And this was something that will change next season. So for the people like Marc Marquez, it's going to be a massive disadvantage because Marquez, he's not afraid to take risks. He will put the dry tyres on when it's maybe a lap or two too early, but he knows that he will get better and better, whereas everyone else will get slower and slower. But for like Valentino Rossi and Yamaha and the people who do struggle with going from the dries to the wets or the wets to dries, it will help them a lot because they will get the messages through the dashboard saying, their rivals on the dries or the wets and they're doing this lap time compared to yours. So it's a little bit of a win-loss situation for various riders. Now, Valentino Rossi, you would have thought he would be well up for this, change, but no, he's not, because he's saying that this sport is turning into Formula 1. And yeah, it is. With the riders, going out there, it's down to themselves. But no, it's now turning into a big team sport sort of thing where, it's not your decisions anymore. It's basically what the team say you're doing. Whereas, you have the feeling on the bike and you know exactly where the grip is. Now, Race Direction have said to the team managers, we have a list of messages that you can choose from. You can't basically load up the software and just type in whatever you want. So there was a joke on it that saying Davide Tardozzi can't tell Lorenzo whilst he's on the track to hand his P45 and stuff like that. For a joke. But basically, they can't say whatever they want. They can't say, okay, press this button now, do this now. It's basically only really for flag to flag races and drop a position or stuff like that if a rider's catching, stuff like that. But the riders will probably know when they need to ride slower for tyre wear, which they do anyway. They know they have to maintain their pace. The fuel that they have, I'm not sure if they'll know the fuel or not. They know when to push because they have the pit board seeing that they have the gap and whatever. And when the guy behind is catching, and again, pit board. And then the biggest thing is when the best time to pit is for the dry tyres. That is the big thing. So, like I said, Race Direction, list of messages that they have to choose from. So, box now and stuff like that. And that's basically it. So the system is obviously, as I've said, is known as virtual pit boards, and it's already in use by Race Direction to communicate to riders via penalties. So you have the penalties saying drop a position, you have the penalties for track extending warnings and stuff like that. So it's something like that that will help the riders, with the penalties at the moment, but obviously then we've got the new flag-to-flag virtual pit board rubbish coming in 2018. So at the moment, it is red flag, black and orange flag, blue flag, chain position, ride through, and track limit warning that is on the dashboard from Race Direction at this moment in time. But 2018, the display has to read the same no matter what team you are in, but you have the added on stuff. So basically, if a rider, if Rossi gets a message saying Marc Marquez 2 seconds faster, every single rider will get that. From 2018, the display has to read the same. So I assume that means everybody's dash is going to have the same message on, which kind of defeats the object really, because if every rider has the same message, it levels it out, but there's no point of having the virtual pit board, which, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it's whatever. They've obviously agreed it. They've obviously got a plan in place. More news will come out as we get closer and closer to 2018. So check the Twitter and our Facebook page for that. And the last kind of point that I really want to touch on is that, you know, in terms of the communication, you can't. Scott Redding says you can't communicate things like, you know, what do I do about this, or you know, the team saying try something here. The team can just tell you when to pit in a flag to flag, or if we need to drop a position, stuff like that. So just the basic standard things that are kind of already on the dashboard now, but it's kind of just a little bit more advanced, and a little bit more information coming through from the team to the rider. So that's basically it. I know it's been a very long waffly video, but it is a kind of topic that you need to kind of expand on and dig deeper and look back at how things, you know, could have changed in the past races with it, and how it's going to affect races in the future. Let me know down in the comments, how do you think it's going to affect the 2018 season and beyond? Will it affect riders in terms of positions when it comes to flag to flag? Will it make the championship more boring because you're not going to get an odd result like Scott Redding and Bradley Smith getting a podium in Mazzano, or, you know, Jack Miller maybe getting a win again, or some crazy random result, Paulo Espargaro winning on the KTM because he made a call to go on the wet tyres or the dry tyres perfectly and he wins. You know, is that going to stop some crazy results happening to make the championship even closer than what it already is? So let me know down in the comments what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.